Hello and welcome to Next 2.0 on WQLN PBS NPR. Next is produced by the Public's Voice Media. I am your host, Marcus Atkinson. I've got my guest hosts with me today, Chuck Cammarata and Marc Blount. Also have my man, Big Wash, Abdulla Washington. He's sitting in as a guest host as well. We're excited to do this show for you today. If you want to know more about Next 2.0, you can go to Facebook and like the page. You can also follow us on Instagram at Next 2.0 Erie. There you can keep up with upcoming show promos, events, and clips about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, this is a very special recording because we are on location in the community talking about this 2024 election. This is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, every time you turn on the news, there's something new. There's something that outrages you. There's something that makes you cheer. There's something that makes you cry. There's things that make you want to throw stuff at the TV. It is just on and on and on. We haven't had an opportunity to slow down and really talk to the public about how they feel with everything they've been seeing, because everything's been coming at us in rapid fire. Chuck and I have been talking, Marc and I have been talking, and it seems like the minute you get fixated on one part of the news cycle, it turns into something else. And so certainly all of this started when our beloved president, Joe Biden, decided to take one for the team, as they say. And it was a lot of hoopla. First, let me just say this. Did you think he would actually step down? Let's start with the debate performance. Let me go back there. I'll start with myself. I'm watching the debate performance and I'm saying, no, Joe, no. Get him some water. And I'm waiting for his throat to clear up. And as I'm watching him, and all jokes aside, I said to myself, oh my goodness. I don't know if Joe can do this. And my concern was this. Joe is obviously an older man. Was it 83? He's already suffered much in his life. He's lost his wife. He's lost his daughter. He's lost his son. And obviously remarried now. And then his other son is on trial, right, for his issues. But not just that his other son is on trial. When I listened to the dirty laundry of this family, this proud family, aired on national television as Hunter Biden was on trial, my heart broke for the family. You know, the part about him supposedly getting his sister-in-law, the widow of his dead brother, addicted to drugs, and then them two having an affair. And I'm looking at Jill and Joe, and I'm saying to myself, this is the dirty laundry that comes from addiction. If anybody in this room has ever had an experience with addiction, you know that it respects no person. Doesn't matter how much money you have, what color you are, what your circumstances are. It ravishes families. But to have that laid bare to the nation was horrific. And at his age, with the weight of the presidency and everything else is going on, I thought, this is too much for this man, right? And so I walked away like the rest of America, concerned when I saw this debate performance. What are you guys' thoughts?
I didn't think he would resign even after that. I was at a Democratic fundraiser the night before he stepped down, and the discussion in every little group was about whether he would or not, and almost nobody thought he would, including me. And then the next morning, and I didn't watch the debate, so I didn't see what you saw, but the next morning he was out, and it seemed at that moment there was a level of energy infused into the discussion, into the party, that would not have happened otherwise. And I thought, how did I not see this as a good thing?
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled about how it's gone.
But before there was this level of energy, there was a measure of defiance on behalf of Joe Biden. Marc, what are your thoughts? And then we go over here to Big Wash. When you watched it play out, what were you thinking?
I thought there was three game changers here. It was the debate, and we can't discount Butler, which we all saw, the tragedy that happened there. And then we have President Biden stepping down. And I think they're all kind of connected together in this decision making. And the reason is momentums. This country is a momentum, who has the momentum type vibe here with the 24-hour news cycle that you have. I think Joe was defiant, or I'm sorry, President Biden was defiant and thought he had a chance to redeem himself. But then after Butler happened, And we all have this picture at Butler, and they even made a image of this where Trump seems defiant and the blood, the thing that happened. I was hoping for a reset button with the rhetoric myself to tone it down. It didn't happen. No. He doubled down on himself because I don't wish violence on anybody.
He was cool for about 10 minutes at the GOP convention.
Yes.
Literally for about 10 minutes.
And momentum, I think, was swinging his way. Not to discount the life that was lost in Butler. But then when Joe stepped down with the Harris announcement, I felt like there was an energy that hit the Democratic Party. And it was all of a sudden, and I didn't assume this excitement for her at first. I really didn't. I thought they would choose somebody else more as a front runner. But when she was chosen, I felt the momentum the ball was in her court. And then now we have the pick. And I expect a little reset or settling for that, the VP pick. Because could it have been our governor? Could it have been, personally, I like the Arizona Kelly. This one was a safe pick, and now we got to reintroduce ourselves, a lot of us, to this governor right here. So I think that this election is changing as we go, and a lot can happen between now and November.
We're going to get into the VP pick here shortly. Big Wash, what are your thoughts on how this played out? And then, Marc, we'll go directly into the assassination attempt, because you're absolutely right. That preceded this whole thing with President Biden stepping down. But give us your thoughts, Big Wash, before we go into that.
Well, I think, Marc, you're exactly right. But one of the things we're looking at thematically is what Shakespeare called the undiscovered country. You know, we know what we're familiar with, and we want to cling to that. But when you look at Republicans and what motivates these ultra-conservatives is looking at the past. When we think about the undiscovered country, which he meant as death, we're really talking about the future that we're all headed to. And when we look at these issues of age, these guys are around the same age. When we look at the future of this country, we can be like the conservative, the ultra-conservative, who thinks if we keep changing and going the way we're going, we're doomed. Or we can look like Biden ultimately had to assess. We are somewhere we haven't been before. And it might not be this terrible, evil, bad thing. Maybe it is time for me to get out the way and believe in this kind of future that we've all been creating together. And I think that's a beautiful concept that he's been able to accept that. There's a lot of people who don't necessarily agree with everything his administration has been doing. And I personally feel a lot of his decisions really haven't been his for a minute. A lot of things have been going kind of on autopilot. There are his political enemies who've been attacking him at every conceivable angle, like this stuff with his kid and everything. It's crazy, but you know, he was big enough to decide, you know what, I can't control these things. Let me, you know, let's use our process. Let's trust the people. Let's trust those who are also called to the future to step up. And I admire the fact that he made that decision. We as a nation are somewhere we haven't been before, and it doesn't have to mean death. And if we want this to work for the whole world, really, we have to accept the possibility on change.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Democrats in general is we tend, I've always had great respect for Biden. I think Biden's done a terrific job as president. Certainly there are things that have been left out that I would like to see him do, and there's lots of reasons for that, but what happened in the last few days was a display of the kind of character that we haven't seen from the other side at all. And for me, that's massive, because you're not going to get a person who agrees with you on every policy position who's going to do exactly what you want them to do, but are you going to get a person who you trust to lead, whose wisdom and intelligence and compassion are at the forefront? And it's one of the reasons I'm so fixated on Project 2025, which I hope we'll get to in a bit. But one of the reasons for that is that it seems to not care about people. It's not about, it's about one tiny little demographic group as opposed to the common good. And I think what we saw happen here was a guy said, I'm going to do what's right for the common good. And that just makes, I have tremendous admiration for that. I could not see a decision like that coming from anybody on the other side.
I want to touch on that unity vibe because I was actually surprised when people started to debate internally and even across the country in terms of, well, who would replace, right? Who would replace President Biden? I'm like, are you joking? It would be the political kiss of death for you to try to step over this woman of color in this unprecedented position in these polarized times. Do that to your detriment, right? And fortunately, they got that right. But when I heard these different rumblings of people who were thinking about challenging, I'm thinking, no, you don't want to do that. Big Walsh, you wanted to add to that.
I just can't believe. It just seemed from me, someone who's been involved in various organizations over the years, and anyone who's been involved with a corporation or any such entity, how publicly everyone was speaking about the issue since the disaster of the debate. And it's like, you want organization, some level of organizational unity. And all these people who are supposedly master politicians just openly just getting on the media talking about, dude, we should do this. What happened? And I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, it would have just gone. Right, well, you know.
You don't have an opportunity. You do it in your family.
Exactly.
I think we have to count in the social media aspect of it. Nothing's a secret no more. You don't have to wait for Bob Woodard to write the book 5 years down the line. You have a podcast like we're doing right now, and everybody is going directly to the people with their conspiracy theories, with everything. The minute that the shot was fired, we got more information, it seemed like, than what the Secret Service had. Instantly. A guy came right on that day and said, I saw him go up the ladder and they didn't report it. This was live. So our news cycles is more than what it was in the past. And I like to say this, I'll always compare Biden to Lyndon B. Johnson. The timing of it, the civil rights of it, the diversity of it, the conservative, comparing Nixon to Trump. Even Trump is Nixon's dream. Nixon once said if the president did it, it is legal. And that was his belief. He wanted that ultimate power. Trump finally attained it.
Yeah.
By packing the court.
The Supreme Court.
Oh, definitely. So this is something to really look at. And, you know, I commend Biden for taking that assessment of himself, but we have to realize we're in that era now where news is 24/7.
It is.
Instant. And people are responding. This changed the way we looked at everything. Sports, everything. Every day, the same thing. And so people are more sensitive than ever to information, and we respond quicker than ever.
I would say take how you feel about the candidate out of it. To go back to the assassination attempt, take how you feel about the candidate out of this. The failure of the Secret Service was just mind-boggling to me. Even when, and I said this on my personal podcast, even with the iconic photo with him having his fist up, you know, defiantly, and he's yelling, fight, fight, fight. Even that was a galactic failure by the Secret Service. The asset is supposed to be completely covered the entire time. Because here's the question. Was there a second shooter? Aha, you don't know. Is there a third shooter? You don't know. And so while this man is yelling, fight, fight, uncovered, face exposed, he could have been murked in your possession, right? And so in so many ways, it was a failure. And I hear some people say, hey, but it's good they didn't protect. No, it's not, because if it was a candidate you cared about, you would want them to do their job. We paid them to do their job. It was a failure. Whether they were guarding Trump, Barack Obama, whomever, it was a failure. But to your point, Mark, I'm thinking, even with the intel, they're saying somebody's scaling, you know, the roof here. You could have got Boy Scouts with walkie-talkies to handle that.
I find this two interesting talking points for both sides of the aisle. You hear the DEI talk with Harris. She's a DEI candidate. Well, in my opinion, stereotyping and racial profile happened when it came to the assassinator person. If that had been Marc Blount or you with a ladder,
interesting thought
on that roof.
Interesting thought. There he
lies. The reports are they had identified him. They was just curious as to what is he trying to do. What is he up to?
It's true. It's true.
And maybe he just want to see him. Now, if that had been you, And the optics, let's be realistic about it. The optics of Butler County and who was in that audience, and you're trying to scale, he was given the benefit of a doubt that a lot of us wouldn't have had. A lot of us didn't have that, what do we call it, the privilege. That's where privilege comes into play. That's the reality of my life.
Interesting point.
I could have never made it to that roof. That's the reality of it. This man did. So you have two lessons. You have two hot issues that's bubbling right there, right before our eyes, played out. So this whole cycle of things, we're learning things about ourselves, and we're learning how we assess things, and as he said, some harsh truths about ourselves in this country.
Yeah. So we go from that and we go back to now Biden is making the decision to step down. All of these different people are coming to him. They're all having their say. I think that Nancy Pelosi's voice echoed loudly, in his ear. I think he still kind of has a grudge a little bit with Nancy Pelosi when it comes to that whole thing. And so now he steps down, or he's in the process of thinking about stepping down. Meanwhile, the GOP convention is playing out. Any takeaways from the convention? Because takeaway number one for me was, I said it jokingly, the tone that was struck by Donald J. Trump was on point for literally just a few minutes when he was on stage. He wants to be everybody's president, right? He is talking about he'll never talk about this again. And the list goes on. And then the wheels fell off, right? And then before I throw it to you, when he brings J.D. Vance up, one of the things that I thought to myself was, you are pandering to your base with this pick. This pick does nothing for you. Again, he's thinking he's going to run against Joe Biden. This pick does nothing for you in terms of the people in the middle, which, love it or hate it, it's the undecided voters that are going to decide this election. People that are hard left are voting left. People that are hard right are voting right. The people in the middle, J.D. Vance, did not do anything to stoke their flame at all. Chuck, what are your thoughts on this? And we'll swing it back over here to Big Wash.
I think there's a lot to look at in terms of why he chose Vance. One of the things that I think is that Peter Thiel made a huge donation to Trump's campaign.
That being the tech billionaire that's been
the PayPal guy. Oh yeah,
J.D. Vance and even Trump.
And J.D. Vance is a disciple. Thiel is a mentor of his, and he's a scary guy who has had lots to do. I'm going to keep harping on this with Project 2025, and I want to talk more about Thiel. But I think it was just purely mercenary for Trump. Pick a young guy. He doesn't care who his vice president is. He doesn't care about anything except for himself. So he just had to make a choice.
Yeah.
And somebody gave him a lot of money to pick this guy.
And I think you hit the nail on the head before I throw it to Big Wash, because you're right. This tech billionaire did fund Vance. I know that Donald Trump Jr. was brokering this deal heavily. I know that Thiel was approached by Donald Trump for a $10 million donation to his campaign. And this time the man said no. Said, I didn't think I got a return on my investment before. And so for me, and this isn't proven, is this quid pro quo. Like, how about I put your boy in as my vice president? Will that open up the purse strings? Yeah. Big Wash, what are your thoughts on the GOP convention? And then we'll take it over to Marc.
I'm always struck by the amount of unity that they display, regardless of what's happening, because, you're talking about an authoritarian mindset, and everybody has to be on the same page or perceived to be so. And it's always interesting to look at the lengths that they will go to show that they're united. So a lot of times I might not watch commentary or everyone's speech because they're pretty good at sticking to the script. What I will tell you is the moment of these choices, this is probably the cleanest and best possible example of you break, I pick that I've ever seen in my life. Oftentimes we're disappointed by the party, by the Democratic Party, because we give away advantages. You can see it for maybe pandering to one group or another, and we usually don't necessarily see. I guess the orientation of people who are more on the liberal spectrum is to be less opportunistic about situations. When you have to clearly capitalize on your enemies, you never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. That's one of the things. But I think however it went about, it turned out very well for the party, and I think that the Democratic Party is a great position. I think that speaks to the amount of self-searching that people had to do because of all the attacks, especially over the past year with Donald Trump, knowing that he's going to be the undisputed Republican nominated, like all the speculation about Biden and whatnot. I mean, this is a guy who he has 3 felony convictions. Am I right?
34.
34. Oh, sorry. 34. I want to say 3 because it is 34.
Big
So, yeah, it's like, here's a guy who should be just overwhelmed. But the unity in his party makes him overconfident, the polling and whatnot. But I think Biden, the timing of everything favored the situation, and I'm impressed with the professionalism of ultimately of the members, the leaders of the party, because they were able to scoop out a good decision out of all this. Now, wherever else it goes, we don't know, but like I said, I think it's a great example. You break, I pick. If it had gone some other way, we might be, the Democratic Party might be in far more trouble than it's in right now from where we're sitting.
Marc, what do you think about the GOP convention?
I think Trump doubled down on trying to win Ohio with the Vance pick. I think he doubled down on trying to prove he's a conservative. We have to understand Trump didn't start off as a conservative.
No.
He started off as a Democrat. He made fun of them. And so Trump, being an entertainer, being conscious of image, he knows how to move and manipulate people, regardless of what you think about him. He's not dumb. I don't think he's dumb at all. I don't fall into that. And I also think Vice President Harris doubled down on what was called the blue wall. She probably felt she already had Pennsylvania with the support of our governor, whereas if she got the Minnesota governor, that helps with Wisconsin and Michigan. And I think that's what she's banking on, because that's the way to the White House. We're looking at electoral numbers. If you look at the numbers, if that works, if the blue wall holds out, she wins. Because we have to remember, Trump never won an election. He never won the popular vote. That's why the myth of the election was stolen from him or what have you. I would like to ask him, what election did you really win?
Right.
You didn't beat Hillary with the popular vote. You didn't win the last one with Joe Biden with the popular vote. So why is it impossible that you lose an election?
And he has successfully sold that narrative.
Definitely. A lot of people buy into that.
Yeah.
Now, somehow Mike Kelly got the votes, but he didn't get them.
Yeah.
Somehow his votes ended up in the trash and other votes didn't with the same party. And I don't see how that works together.
I think that was a wonderful note for us to end on. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thank you so much for just giving us your perspective on what's going on with this election, all the things that have led up to this. Certainly, this is a historic occasion. We see a lot of political firsts. We see a lot of rare things politically, and I think that regardless of where you fall, it is incumbent upon us all to just get involved with what we see. We thank you, and that's it for our show today. Thank you, the listener. I want you to tune in next time for more discussion and analysis with local and national guests. I need you to remember that Next 2.0 streams on Fridays on all major podcast platforms and on the fourth Sunday of the month at 4 p.m. on WQLN PBS NPR, which is 91.3 FM. A new feature, if you want to leave a message, comment, or suggestion, you can actually call the next hotline. Give your 2 cents, give your suggestions. That number is 814-240-8816. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm Marcus Atkinson. Come and join us again so that you can hear about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Peace.